A lot of times I hear, I don't have time to tell stories. You don't have time not to, because you know what's more time consuming? When you lose people and you have to recruit and you have to onboard and you have to knowledge transfer and all of that. That's what you don't have time for.
Hey, welcome. I'm Amy Woodall, and this is The Conscious Habit. And we are on a mission to help make this planet a more conscious place at home, at work, and in the world around us. So we are meeting with the greatest conscious experts in health, in fitness, in leadership, relationships, you name it, from around the globe that can help us do just that.
Hey there, Conscious Habit listeners. I am thrilled to be joined with Danielle Krischik today. She is the host of the Story Effect podcast and also the author of the book that is launching November the 21st. So by the time you hear this, it's likely that this is out and available to you, also by the same name, The Story Effect. Danielle is the Chief Strategy Officer for the Night Agency. They do incredible marketing and branding work with brands around the world, many of which we know and love and likely have hanging out in our pantries and in our cabinets within our home. But Danielle and I had a chance to connect. And you know when you meet somebody and you're like, those are my people. Like you just kind of get a sense that they see the world the same, that they lead with their heart similarly. And I love her message of helping arm people with being able to storytell in order to make deeper connections to others, themselves, and the world around them. And so we get to learn from her today, the wisdom that she shares on her podcast, the wisdom that is in her book, and help me welcome Danielle to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm rarely a guest. I'm on the other side of the mic all the time. So it's a little nerve-wracking, but I really appreciate it because it's nice to be able to share my side of the story sometimes also.
I so get that. It is as the host, it's like we kind of know where we're going to take it. Although, spoiler alert, listeners, I never know where I'm going to take these conversations because I just try to think like you do. And I'm like, what is my next question going to be? I have no idea. It's just as a surprise to me as it is to you. But, to be put in the hot seat, if you will, I think it's great we get to hear your story from a new and different lens. And that's really where I want to start. You are passionate about arming people with their own ability to tell their story so that they can create deeper, more meaningful connections and understanding. But my gut says that starts with your own story and likely the pieces that help you connect more deeply to your team and to your work. So I don't know where you want to kick us off. Is it, it was a sunny day in June when I was born. I mean, feel free to take us to whatever point in life, but share a little bit about your story.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I really believe that I had this hyper curiosity about people and their backstory and human behavior since I was very little. I rarely share this because, a lot of people say, I knew when I was 3 what I wanted to do. And I'm like, yeah, right. You didn't know anything when you were 3. But I will say in, I believe it was 3rd grade, we had a book report like you do. And I did mine on hamsters because I'm so cool and hamsters are so cool. But I just remember everybody was getting up and nervously reading off of this little piece of paper and, kind of going through all their little facts that they learned about whatever subject. And I thought to myself, I need to really entertain this group. Like they look bored, they're fidgeting, they're playing with their toys, they're talking to each other. And so I got up and abandoned script and I told a story about a hamster named Harry. And I made it this kind of storytelling moment, gave him a personality, a backstory, the whole thing. And the teacher at the time kind of picked me up and said, that was amazing. I'm going to have you share this with all the other classes, and paraded me around the school to do this. And I look back at that and not like that kicked off my career, but I thought, there is power in the story and in the context, in the narrative of things. So fast forward, I went to school for advertising and public relations and fell in love with the advertising side because, again, it's human behavior. How can a story make people grab their wallets and run to the iPhone, the Apple store, and stand in line for $1,000 phone? Like, what is that about? And so started, my career as a copywriter, telling stories for brands, billboards, radio spots, magazine, all of that, and loved it. And won a bunch of awards, did some freelance work and all of that. Ended up at Night Agency. And we started to tell stories in the inside of companies. So we started to tell stories to employees and to leaders to help people believe in themselves, believe in the work, believe in the company, so that they will stay and grow and all those KPIs that we talk about. That's where I really found the power of story, because it's human storytelling. All these companies, they're very well aware they have employees, but they forget they have people. And so we started doing a lot of qualitative listening sessions. I do not have a PhD. I'm not qualified to do that, but I was getting people in a room and asking questions that are, not your typical, tell me about your career and what do you love most about your job, but, give me a story about your best day here. When was the moment you learned that you're more than you think you are? All of those kind of deeper, more intimate, personal stories. With that, got some great insight that really worked toward these campaigns that help people kind of stay and grow and all those EVP things and culture and values and all the things we talk about. But that's kind of where the spark of human-centered storytelling began for me. And I've been on a mission I think I've been with Knight for 15 years doing that work. And I love it.
I love that it started with a hamster story, because almost all of us have a traumatic death hamster story. Like they're really divas and they're dramatic, and they love to, sign off in a very dramatic fashion for, third and fourth graders to experience. But in doing this now, help me, or at least help the audience and myself understand, like, what is the value of storytelling inside and outside of our organizations? Because we are big believers that how you do anything is how you do everything, that the things that are meaningful and impactful in our homes are similar things that are meaningful and impactful in our work world. So what do you feel like is that through line in the power of storytelling beyond just the workplace?
If your team, if your employees, your people don't believe, your customers never will. It absolutely has to start in the inside. And in fact, you can do a lot of damage if you go out in the world and you talk about something that the company believes in wholeheartedly. Oh, we stand for this, or we're all about this. We make life easier, whatever it is. And you're not practicing that internally. That story is not true. It all falls apart. People will leave just because of that. And it's too easy for people to leave a company nowadays. $5 more an hour and I'm going down the street. That is how the world is now. So it is everything to stories are everything. They are what gets your heart involved. They are what gets your head involved. They are the reason people connect to each other, to the work they do, to the company, and to the leader. There are a lot of people leaders who never really learned how to be a leader. They've just been with a company a really long time and they were promoted to leadership, but they don't really understand how. And oftentimes they kind of go right to that spreadsheet, those KPIs, those things that they're on the hook to do. And they don't show their human side. And then they have a team that won't follow them. They don't trust them. Storytelling can help with that. It gives a little glimpse into who that person is as a human being, what makes them tick, why they do what they do, all of those things in it, and it bridges the gap where people then find understanding. The whole premise of storytelling for me is to create connection. That is the biggest thing. So if you start with storytelling, creating connection inside your company, you can absolutely take that outside your walls and create connection with your clients. Sales teams, the biggest way they can connect their clients is through storytelling. It's not buy this phone, it's the best, it's the fastest, it has the greatest processing, but what is it going to do for my life? It's all about connection. So I know I kind of rambled there, but It definitely starts with the inside. It's all about belief. And really, at the end of the day, the output is
I
connection.
think there's many of us have heard of the book Raving Fans. I know many of my clients over the years have just like made it like required reading for their team, which is incredible. And it's all about, how do we convey stories for, our clients to love us, or how do we create this, raving fan culture where people love us so much. But I love how you are sharing that it really starts within. Are your employees raving fans? Do they deeply believe about the impact of the work, the people, the meaning, the mission? Are they fully bought in? Because if they aren't, then no matter how great we are on the outside with our clients, that client experience is a ripple effect. It's a lagging indicator of the internal satisfaction of our people. But then continuing on, just to, kind of iterate what you had said, I think outside of the workplace, it is really hard to hate someone whose story you know. And so if
So
our
true.
goal is to be a conscious human, and here's the deal, we teach and talk a lot about ego. When there is something that's different, ego perceives that as a threat, and it immediately needs to figure out all the ways that it can judge it, because ego needs you to be wrong so I can be right. And it creates incredible divisiveness. This is happening in our organizations, why sales hates service and vice versa. This is happening in our neighborhoods, why somebody who worships or votes differently than you happens because ego says in order for me to be right, they need to be wrong, and we do not hear their stories. And so it is incredibly connective, right, to our work and to our humanity to know the story of another human being.
So true. I'll tell you a story about that. I had the privilege about 13 years ago, I believe it was, of working on a campaign for Starwood Hotels and Resorts. And for those of you who don't know, it's the group that owned the Sheraton, the Westin, the W hotels, since has been bought by Marriott. But we embarked on a campaign to interview 100 people from 100 countries. And I grew up in upstate New York, and my parents did not have money. We were not well traveled. We never left the country, So here I go to Dubai. My first time out of the country is to Dubai, by the way. Like that in itself was like, where am I going?
It's like, that's like your first car is a Mercedes. Like, wow, you are doing it
so,
up.
so true. Mercedes, but like one of a kind that only one person can own. I mean, it was wild. And, I get over there, and I had not been exposed to a ton of different cultures at this point because, again, I didn't travel. I didn't go out of the country. So I sit in a chair, and the people that sat in front of me, all walks of life, all backgrounds, people that just didn't look like me, didn't come from a place I came from. I mean, you can just imagine the differences, right? And I was asking personal life questions, and the biggest takeaway of the whole thing was, if we all knew how similar we really are, that when we talk about what we love, it always comes back to family and spending quality time. If we talk about holidays, we all have our traditions and we have our favorite things that happen on our favorite holidays. We talk about fear, and it's usually around loss or, conquering a major challenge in life that we didn't think we were up for. There were so many similarities, and not to sound trite or cheesy, but just the people could not have been more different. I mean, the language barriers alone. I mean, there were people that spoke every language, right? This is Dubai, is a hub city. So you can imagine who I was speaking with. But that is when I realized, and I will admit that there were some high-level leaders that came in the room very, very well dressed. And I was prepped like, listen, this is a VP, so don't get too crazy. Just kind of ask them nice, safe questions. They were a human being. I remember this one very high leader came in, and, everybody made me nervous to speak with him. A few minutes in, we're talking about how he loves the smell of his dog because he smells the backyard and the adventure of the day. And it's just the most comforting. you never thought in a million years that this person, who's supposed to be really buttoned up and all business was going to go there. Instantly humanized this person, right? I could not help but think if we had more of this inside the workplace, maybe, just maybe, we'd feel differently about the people around us. And then how would that translate to the work we're doing, the collaboration we need to do, the stretch assignment we need to be a part of? It works all the way across the board. It's a ripple effect.
It really is. I mean, I think anybody listening to this, no matter what your organization is, every company I've ever worked in, have worked with, I should say, as clients, in the last decade and a half, when you ask them what is their number one challenge, probably 90% would say communication of some sort. And what it is really the lack of conveying, I think, this humanity. And so we take problems and challenges and we hold them against people and we kind of demonize, and then we write our own story on their behalf, and we continue to create a greater division, less consciousness, less ownership. And it's so easy for me to make a villain out of somebody whose story I have written for them. So I know you have there's this sort of 4 approach, right? Of the 4 types of, is it 4 types of connection and then the 4 stories framework? Can you kind of elaborate? And by the way, 4 is our family number. We love the number 4.
Oh,
It's sort of like
I love that.
it's our connectivity in our family. So I feel very connected to this already.
I love that so much. I'm a numbers person too, by the way. Like our house number had to be a certain number. I'm big on numbers. So that's really cool. Really cool. Yeah. So 4 types of connection. And if you know anything about an engagement survey, it sort of mirrors the quadrants, but it really came authentically from interviewing people from companies representing over 500,000 employees over the course of a decade to kind of come up with this. So the 4 areas are connection to the company itself, connection to the work we do, connection to the leader, and connection to each other. Those are the 4 connection types that influence the way people feel at work the most. There are lots of micro connections and other things we could talk about, but those are really the 4 major categories. Now let's go into the storytelling types within each. So connection to the company. This is where people have to find their story within the story. So if the company has a founder story, and let's take Patagonia, the founder story is all about adventure, right? Get out there and experience the world, and it's all about adventure. It's not enough to just share that story. People have to find their story within it in order to make it personal for them. So it's, what does adventure look like for me? I might not climb the side of a mountain, but I'm going to get out there and eat lunch by myself at a cafe and experience the thrill of not being on my phone and being fully present by myself. That's a real world example. That was a huge adventurous thing that I did. I don't know if that makes me lame, but I was very scared. And one day I'm like, I'm just going to go eat by myself and not touch my phone and not bring a book. That was my adventure. But my point to that is it's finding what is personal to you within the company story. Same thing can work for the purpose. These companies go to great lengths to create this mystical, magical purpose statement. And then they put it on the wall in this great lettering and they uplight it. And it's like, we have a purpose. Okay, we're good. And they walk away, right? It's not enough to create a purpose statement. Do people find their story within it? If our purpose is to be, to create sustainable products so we can have a better world in the future. Well, what is my personal purpose in that? So, where is my lane in that? A great example, MasterCard. We did some work with them and we were interviewing their recent college grad hires. And their mission, their purpose at the time was to create a world without cash. Okay, great, because you're a credit card company, right? So that's kind of where everybody goes. When I started doing these interviews, though, every single person had this deep personal. The first guy walked in and he had, Beats headphones around his neck and a hoodie. He was a programmer, right? Typical programmer vibes. And he came in and I said, so if MasterCard's kind of, setting out to create a world beyond cash, what is your personal kind of purpose in that? And he said, well, I save lives. And I'm like, how, okay, are you one of those software guys with an ego? Like, how do you save lives? And he said, well, a world without cash means that people can pay digitally, as in they can take their Apple Watch and they can pay for something with their Apple Watch. Well, how does that save lives? Some people in the city, deep in the city, they get out from their shift in the middle of the night. It's not exactly safe, where their commute from their office to their home, and they stop at a bodega to get something to eat. Well, if they can quickly hit their watch to pay and get out of there, and there's no cash, there's no robbery. Bam, right? Like, eye-opening. So he found this personal mission within what MasterCard was setting out to do. So that's how you connect people individually and personally to the company. Connecting people to their work. So if the company is connection, kind of long-term, like we're on this mission and we're going to be in this together for a long time to create this. Connecting people to their work is more about in the moment. So how can a leader connect people to the task on their desk that day, that moment? When you are at a stand-up, for an example, and you're kind of giving everybody a download on what they're going to be working on that day, you can say, okay, we need to do this, create this presentation deck for one of our clients. Unfortunately, it's really hot. It's due in a couple days. Here's the brief. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, it's work at that point. It's the grind. Because the grind is a series of what's without whys, right? So how can I turn that around? Get everybody in the room. Listen, this one's a little bit hot, but I need your help. We have a client who has an opportunity to present to her leadership. She's brand new at the organization. People don't know what she's capable of yet, and this is her moment to shine. I know we got to kind of turn it around fast, but we can really make her look good, and we care about this client. She's awesome, and she's so good to us, and she's taken us with her every company she's worked for. Are you guys in to kind of help her look good? And this is a real story, by the way. Instantly changes the game. Now I'm connected to, now I'm going to go in there and I'm going to create the most beautiful, smart, elegant deck for her that I possibly can, because in that moment, that's what I really care about. I get it.
Ladies, imagine taking time away to work on you. Meditation, yoga, transformational work, a chance to have grand adventures and build lasting relationships. Desiree Garcia and I founded High Vibe Tribe Retreats to create just that. And if you're curious about joining us on our next retreat, head over to highvibetriberetreat.com, link in the show notes. Just to let that sink in, when we are communicating, are we good at purely communicating the what, but maybe not so great at communicating the why and really allowing people to pull in? And the thing is, this is just communication. If you don't share with them the why, they will create their own narrative, because as humans, we need to have understanding. So if you don't provide it for us, we'll create our own. And now all of a sudden, here's the narrative that could be created in that. Oh yeah, it's last minute because somebody didn't do their job, and now all of a sudden it's our problem. And so they're expecting us to do, twice the work and half amount of the time. And so now all of a sudden we've got tension, we've got frustration, we've got unnecessary drama. The ego is leading the story, and we are not all collaboratively working on something with love. And then let's just add the conscious stamp on it. What kind of energy is being put towards that work? Because the energy you put towards it matters in the outcome and how it's then felt and expressed on the other side of that. So I just wanted to pause and say that's so good for us to reflect. Are we sharing the what and the why? Okay, so we've got company, we've got work, and then the third is leader.
Leaders, like I mentioned before, I understand that people leaders have their KPIs and they have an agenda. They are pressed for time. And a lot of times I hear, I don't have time to tell stories. You don't have time not to, because you know what's more time consuming? When you lose people and you have to recruit and you have to onboard and you have to knowledge transfer and all of that. That's what you don't have time for. I'm not talking about a lot of time. It could be, 5 minutes before a meeting, but leaders have an opportunity. And here's a lane that leaders can stay in if they're not comfortable being completely vulnerable and sharing personal stories. Share stories of experience. This is a really good one for leaders because if you're a leader, you've likely had some mileage in your career, right? And you have experiences to share. If you're launching a project with a team, you can talk about how you worked on something similar in the past and it didn't go so well, and here's what you learned. Share your fails, because people really see the human side of that and what you learned from it. But also share the wins. Share when things really went well and what you learned that you did right, and give everybody a little hope that, hey, like maybe this can be okay, and winning isn't an evil bad thing. It's actually a really good thing, and we can have a winning culture. Great too. Also, share stories of experience on the things that they don't necessarily teach in your training classes, like how you overcame imposter syndrome, for example. I had an interview with a very high up leader, and that was one of the things I asked him, because he shared personally that he was from the south side of Chicago, rough neighborhood, and he worked in his family's liquor store for a while. Not the typical Yale, Harvard upbringing that you would expect from a leader in his position. And I loved this story so much. And, now he's in the C-suite. And I said, did you ever experience where, you think about your humble beginnings and think, oh my gosh, like I shouldn't be sitting in this seat. Like somebody's going to find out that, I didn't have this kind of trust fund upbringing. And he said, any time that ever crept in, I just smashed it in the face with gratitude. And I thought about, look where I'm sitting now, baby. I won the lottery. And he said it just like that. And I'm like, great takeaway. I just learned from him, because he was story sharing and being vulnerable, that if I ever feel that sense of imposter syndrome, knock it in its face with gratitude. It was a great takeaway. So there are lots of stage presence, how to own a meeting. I mean, there are all these little things, moments of experience that leaders can share. And when they do, it humanizes them. Because now they don't have that superhero complex where everybody's like, well, I can't ask him because, he does everything right and he didn't get to where he is, by luck, by chance. It really connects people, and it teaches your team so much.
I wonder
so much
if there's any leaders listening. This would be my question. That is, how do we, not to take us off before we hit number 4, by the way, but like as leaders, we want as a good leader, as a conscious leader, we want things to be about our teams, right? We want to be humble. We want to focus on them. And so what is this balance of sharing our stories without making things about us, right? Without being condescending, because I do think that and I might be jumping ahead where you're like, we'll get to that in the second part of me, but sharing without being condescending, undermining, somebody's intelligence in any way, and without being egocentric. I think a lot of leaders who are shy away from that because they just feel like, well, I don't want to make it about me.
Great that you brought that up. 2-part answer. We are getting to the 4th quadrant, which will address that for sure. But in this lane, you are sharing in service to your team. It's not about you. Even if it's a story about you, it's not about you. You are letting your guard down. You're showing a little bit of your vulnerability. You're sharing a scar in service to your team. Hey guys, I felt like this too. Or hey, I did this exact thing in my career and I bombed it. And here's what I learned. So if there's a pothole ahead, don't walk in it, right? It's completely in service to your team. I hear a lot of leaders say, I don't want to talk about myself. I don't want to. It's not about you. It's not about your fear or vulnerability. It's about your courageous demonstration of it. So that would be for leadership storytelling. the fourth quadrant, and this is why there are four, and this is why you don't want to focus on one and you'll get to the others later. It really all has to work together, is connection with each other. And that's where leaders can work on asking people deep questions, really listening to people, getting people to share their story. And this is where it gets personal. If you have a one-on-one, start the first couple of minutes with, so, how was your day? Or, I've never really asked you something about yourself. Tell me about your kids, your pets, or your passion. Something really easy, and start to kind of baby step into getting to know people. And I'll give you a little vulnerability check, by the way, because I know there will be people listening that say like, oh, there's levels of appropriate vulnerability at work. We can't overshare. We don't want to get too personal. That can get messy. A couple of things you can think about are, am I sharing this in service to the person in front of me? So if I am going to share a personal story, is this because this is going to give that person some hope, give them some inspiration, give them a different way to think about something, help them through a tough time in their lives? So why am I sharing this story? Another thing you can think about is, am I sharing an open wound or a scar? If you're sharing, now this is a gory example, but if you're sharing an open wound and you're still bleeding, then it becomes a therapy session that can make people wildly uncomfortable. That's not what we want to do, unless it's with one of your very close friends, totally different ballgame. But a scar is, I've been through something, I've processed it, and I now have the story to talk about it. And I can tell you what I learned because I'm on the other side of it. Totally different. And then ultimately is appropriate for the audience. So if I'm sharing it, whether it's one person or to my team that day, is this story really appropriate to the people that are in front of me? That's kind of a vulnerability check you can do.
I love that, because I do think there are people who fall on all spectrums, where some people may view that even sharing personal information, like how your kids are, or do you have to, like, there are some people that just feels like, but that's my personal life and that doesn't matter here, and why do I need to share that with you? So there's that sort of extreme, if you will. And then there's the other that is the extreme oversharer. And people do feel like, oh, they're going to now burden me with all of their world's problems and, kind of come dump it on my plate. And I think there are leaders who fall in both categories, ones who are overly reserved, and it's difficult for people to connect with them, and then even leaders who maybe everybody knows everything that's happening in their life at any given second. They know all the tea, all the drama. And I like your emphasis on reflecting on the intention. Like, am I sharing this because I just need a shoulder and an ear? Okay. Do you have a friend? Do you have a therapist? Do you have a
right?
A partner, a sister? Do you have a coach? Right? Like, I mean, that's the place that we get to play for people, is like the safe place to come share hard things, right? So what's the intention? Is it I need an ear or a shoulder? Is it I need them to know that I can help them? I need them to know that I've been through this, right? Which is very me-centric. Or is it I want to help them, as you mentioned? I think that's a really good reflection for us to have when we are kind of looking at that, vulnerability barometer, if you will. So how do we then become good storytellers? What is the essence? What is that framework for being able to share in a way that hits those points that you mentioned?
If you're sharing a personal story, be human about it, be real, be authentic, be raw, and share your real story, and let that be natural. Practice that, by starting in small groups, telling shorter stories. You don't have to get up there and perform, a play for your group, but you can start small. I mean, I'm an introvert. And so I'll share a little bit about my dog because that's easy and comfortable, and I can pick her up right out of her dog bed and hold her in the camera, and that's easy for me. And then that will be a gateway into sharing a little bit about my home life or my husband, and we kind of talk about that and the Yankees game we went to, and so it's about practice. If you're sharing a story at a town hall, or you're sharing a story in front of your team and you're trying to get them to connect to the work or connect to the day or connect to the week ahead, there are 3 words you can remember: captivate, relate, and motivate. So I made them rhymey on purpose because I thought it would be easy for people to remember. But captivate, you have to get people's attention and kick them out of zombie mode, which we are all in all the time, by starting your story with something wow or something, I can't believe that. I didn't realize that. What did he just say? Captivate. And it keeps people's attention all the way through too. So you can captivate when you begin your story, and then kind of midway, you know, put a little twist in the plot and get everybody kind of following along. Relate. This is where you make it human. So if it's a polished brochure copy, commercial level story, people probably won't relate to it. Hey, everybody, we are launching some new software at the company, and it's going to make your job tremendously easier. And I think you will love the way the buttons click and the and the screen looks. Let me know if you have any questions. Nobody can relate to that, right? We heard you. We actually heard you this time, and what you have working with you at your desk is not working for you anymore. We have invested. It was a lot of money up front, but we think it's going to be worth it. Let me explain what this is going to do. First of all, you don't need to log in anymore. I know everybody hates, right? Like, you can just imagine how that goes. All of a sudden, you're storytelling about a piece of software or a piece of technology gets everybody relating to what you're saying. And then motivate. At the end, give people something to think, feel, or do differently. So it might be a long-term call to action, like, so from now on, I want everyone to just consider how the rest of the team is feeling in the moment. If you can, just take a couple minutes to think about, you know how you feel, but how does everybody else feel? Approach it that way and see how it feels, right? That's a long-term kind of call to action, but it could be something in the immediate term, like, next time we meet, I would love for everybody to bring 3 to 5 big ideas, groundbreaking ideas that'll probably never fly, but we're just going to get crazy and see where it goes. So captivate, relate, motivate is a good kind of construct for storytelling.
I think that's great. And really just, as you mentioned, like, be real. I think just people can sense authenticity. It is one of the highest vibrations that we can put off in the world, is our unique expression, is our own authenticity. And you will know in your own body when you're aligned with it. There is less tension when you are fully aligned with your own authenticity. And what's more authentic than your story and your experience, And I think that then people can see themselves in that. Like, authenticity breeds more relatability. And we are social creatures. Social proof is so incredibly important. So to be able to see ourselves in the story is huge. What I hope people walk away with today is just, in your next conversation, whatever is next on your calendar, what is the opportunity to either share a little more vulnerably, help people understand your story, and or be curious about theirs. Create the safe place for them to share more vulnerably. Ask deeper questions beyond how's the weather, and how are you doing? When we say how are you, we just hope and pray people say okay. Like, because we do not have ourselves emotionally prepared for any other answer. But can we create the safe space for people around us to share what's real in their lives? I think this is a good challenge for us to have. Anything else as you're kind of wrapping us up today, Danielle, anything else that you're really hoping people take away from, your insights on the story effect?
You will not lose your business acumen if you become more human at work. That is the biggest thing. You will not become, air quotes, soft. You will not become, you might have some softness, which people will probably really appreciate, but you will not lose your business acumen. You will not lose your edge. In fact, if people, and now I'm speaking to the people leader, if people connect to you on a more human level and they trust you, they will run through a wall for you. I am privileged to lead a very high performing team at night. And they are all high performers. They are all ahead of their class. They're all award winning. Like, they are just amazing. And I'm really, it's really a privilege. I share all kinds of things with them. They also, I mean, I have been writing a book for a year, and it has been a vulnerable, painful, like chest open kind of process. And they've been on the journey with me, and, and they're writers. So, imagine their leader getting in front of them and saying, I have nothing to write today. I'm going to be called out as a fraud. Like, this sucks. Like, I share all of that with them. They exceed expectations on every project. They also know, by the way, that as much as I share my vulnerability with them and my authenticity, if we're up against something, it's a client meeting that doesn't go well or whatever, I will grab my sword and my shield and I'll throw them behind me and I will fight for them too. It's not one or the other. So I would just say, and also storytelling is always ongoing. So I talked about those 4 quadrants and the different types of storytelling, helping people find themselves within the story, learn how to be better listeners and get people to share their story, sharing stories of experience, and sharing stories behind the work, the why behind the what. All of that needs to happen all the time. So it's not a one and done. You want to think of it as creating a culture of storytelling. And when you do create a culture of storytelling inside the house, you end up creating a storytelling mechanism outside, and your customers fall in love with you just like your employees do. So it's always on. Don't be afraid of it. And if you want all the answers, I wrote them all down in my book. So you'll never need to speak with me or take a workshop because it's all there. It's really easy. And don't overcomplicate it. It's the very last thing. Don't overcomplicate it. You don't have to go and study up on the hero's journey and follow that, or Pixar has the formula, so I need to do the storytelling like that. No, be authentic, be real, captivate, relate, motivate. You don't even have to do that in that order. And practice. Do it as much as you can.
I love this. And just imagine the organization to do this in all of those through lines you mentioned too, like within the organization, within your work, as a leader, within each other, and within ourselves, because you are the constant in every one of those. That's the, conscious habit is all about, like, hey, your outer life begins with your inner life. The root of result begins within. And so even having that same curiosity and compassion for ourselves within our own story, can help us feel more empowered, I think, to share it openly with others. And you will always, I loved your story about going, over into other countries and other cultures and really finding the similarities. You will always surprise yourselves how other people will be able to see themselves within your story. Because I know that all of us feel like we're incredibly complex and we're on our own and only we are the ones that deal with this. But in truth, like, our struggles are incredibly relatable. Incredibly relatable. So what a gift you'll be able to give to others and to yourself through sharing more vulnerably. Well, thank you so much.
I love that.
Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I've got some really great notes and takeaways here, and I know our audience does too. Tell us all the places that they can connect with you and find all the good work you're doing.
Thank you so much. My podcast is The Story Effect, which is also the name of my book, coming out November 21st. I have a website. You can learn more about the book, the podcast, and all the things, thestoryeffect.com. And I am a partner at Night Agency. It's a different website altogether, but Night Agency. If you're more curious about how you can bring storytelling into the workplace, or if you're looking to create purpose, values, kind of all of those great culture foundational pieces, we can help with that as well.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, listeners, be curious, be vulnerable, be conscious, be well. Thanks, Danielle.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up this episode, here are my 3 takeaways from Danielle and how we can incorporate them into our lives. Can we just start off with the what and the why combined? Just as a simple communication tool. No matter if you're talking to your family or you're talking to your team or fill in the blank of anybody else. I feel like we are often very good at communicating the what, but when we do not share the why, other people can write our narrative for us. And I think it's an incredible thing for us to remember in our communication. Number 2, if you ever felt before like sharing your story was egoic or too vulnerable, I hope you take away the lesson from Danielle of how meaningful and impactful sharing your story can be. It can inspire someone else. They may be able to see themselves within your story, and it creates deeper connection. I really hope that I remember to take this to heart and to do the same. And number 3, stories foster understanding and greater trust. So I love this kind of back and forth of us being able to share our own story so that we can inspire the people around us. We want to do work. We're excited about the work that we do, but also creating space to understand the stories of other people and the power of giving people the space to feel seen, heard, and felt understood has just a great ripple effect within that relationship.
Thank you for listening to the Conscious Habit Podcast. We would be so grateful if you could help us spread this conscious message by liking, rating, reviewing, and sharing our podcast. And we have an invitation just for you. We're building a community of like-minded, like-hearted people where you will be the first to be notified about live events that we're doing. Every week we go live and have conscious conversations. We're doing live podcasting, and we are sharing conscious content in this community. You can join us by heading over to our website, theconscioushabit.com, and find community under the resources tab or here in the show notes.